Welcome back, guys. We're live. I'm so excited. You know what? I hit go live before I was ready. true to the true to the title of this video. Okay, and I got a little light here, so I feel better about myself. Listen, I hope everybody's having a great day because today is the day that the Lord has made. Let me turn this television down so I don't get all that in our live. But yes, you have read the title or the thumbnail or something, so you know that we're going to discuss more about doing things before you're ready, right? Using your life, like using your time and your experiences as a runway and not a verdict. And this came out of a couple things, some thinking that I've been doing and some conversations that I had, but mostly it was I've been doing an experiment for the last probably 2 weeks, um, roughly, uh, where I'm posting a short every day, and it's not, it's for me to learn from, but it's also just it's an experiment. It's for a lot of different things, but I'm just noticing that the reps are more important than doing it perfectly, and just about really every single time that I record or that I film the video that will become the live, I have I take something out of it that's like faulty. Like I'm like, okay, that was horrible for this reason, right? There's some reason why I don't want to post it, but I do it anyway. Um and I learn from each of those things, but I recognize this pattern of thinking that like I can make it better or it has to be better in order to offer it. And I'm really coming against that with evidence. My own evidence is like, look, the idea that is expressed or the art or the whatever you have to offer that is put out there for other people to encounter is better than whatever perfect version you have in your head of it, right? Whatever is real, whatever you can, produce is better than not having added anything to the conversation. That is my sort of like stance. Um and it's not like I'm not willing to die on this hill like, they say like this is my I'm still learning, but what I'm recognizing from my experiments is that it takes a lot takes a lot of courage to offer something, to put something out there, especially when people might see it, people might see it. But if you really believe in your ideas, you just gotta go for it. So I'm asserting though that there's only so much information you can gather from external sources before you have to do it and then learn from yourself, right? So I'm not saying that research is invaluable, but what I am saying is that, you know, we don't have to it doesn't have to be so perfectly guaranteed before we opt in to participate. So cuz and I'm going to break a lot of these things down, but um I've just been trying to do things before I feel completely ready. I feel like that might be a bit of a story that I'm telling myself when I say I'm not ready. And we as humans, there are a lot of things that we learn from, that we watch and we learn from those things, but it may not be the things that are most useful. So I just want us to sort of like take a second, pick apart our thoughts on this subject. And I've already confidently stated that like you don't know it until you do it, but it's more than that. So everything just kind of becomes a test. And the first thought that I want to like unravel is and take this with a grain of salt. Nobody is saying that research isn't important, but you don't actually know what's going to work until you do it. And then even after that, you're basing a prediction for the future based off of past, right? Like history. whatever data you're looking at, you're basing your prediction moving forward based off of what has happened. So listen, we could talk about probability. Like if you do something a number of times, is it likely that it's going to work in the way you think? Perhaps. But then you just never really know, right? Until you're willing to put it out there. Um, and look, some predictions are extremely well informed, but and I'm just kind of speaking for myself, but I also know that there's a population of us out there, okay? Um, where we want to know more. We want sort of like the guarantee. We want to make sure that we're properly like informed, aligned. Everything has to go the right way the first time, or something like that. I think we feel that innately. We feel like, okay, well, I don't even want to take a chance before I have I don't want to say guarantee, but I want to know that this is going to work, right? I think that's something that I'm confident in saying. We want to, we want to assess other people's experience. You want to access like who we consider to be, what you want to say, experts in a field before we before we move forward with our own sort of like understanding. And listen, like I said, I'm not saying you shouldn't do any research. I'm saying for those of us who are waiting for like a high probability, like we want to know this thing is going to work before we try. Maybe we can kind of like make that a little more fluid. Maybe we can kind of like check ourselves and ask ourselves a few questions, because all the historical data, all the patterns and expertise that come externally still have to, in order for it to work the way we want, have to fit within our circumstances. And so how much of external information can really inform truly what you're doing before an experiment? And that's what I'm saying. Like, everything you're doing is based on what you've lived, what you've learned. Um and hopefully, we're learning from lessons. We're learning from life. We're taking in information, and we're adjusting and applying that information, and we're like implementing based on the information. But it was a conversation I was having yesterday that made me think about how how much we're actually paying attention to what we're desiring. How much are you paying attention to your attention span, to what has your attention, what you're paying your attention out for, right? Because you gotta think, there's these large corporations who are competing now for our attention. These apps and platforms, they want to keep your attention on their platform. They don't want you to leave their platform, even the one that you're viewing this on right now. Like this platform that you're on watching this does not want you to leave this platform. They are 10 toes down, they're all in trying to keep your attention. And so then it must be valuable. But do you know what you're paying attention to? Do you know what you're looking for? I can speak for myself. A lot of times, especially when I'm on social media, like not necessarily, well, yeah, YouTube as well. I don't consider YouTube social media as much as I do like the things that I watch on my phone. The content that I consume on my phone seems to be more social because I'm actually, anyway, that's neither here nor there. But just to finish my sentence, I'm not necessarily going to YouTube to be social or to be looking for um sort of social interaction. I'm looking more for like entertainment or information. Um, and maybe that's what other people use social media that I'm considering to be social media for, but I don't consider the way that I use YouTube when I'm consuming, I don't necessarily consider it to be social media. But my point is, when our attention is captured and we're like in the moment looking at things that are informing us, I don't think that we're really giving all the weight to this idea that like this is what is expected. Like there's billions of dollars being sort of shifted around and in this machine of who can capture the most attention for the longest. It's like they're selling our attention. So it must be valuable. And do you know what you're actually consuming? When I'm looking at YouTube or social media, I'm actually looking sometimes for inspiration. I'm sometimes sort of just like seeing what's up there. And in that way, if I'm just seeing what's available, then my attention is captured. You're kind of like browsing, right? It's just like you're just seeing what's out there. It's not necessarily like solid information, but you're just seeing what the offerings are. And so I have to decide to myself, is that really worth my time? Is that worth like my energy and my talent? Is it worth my attention? Um, you know, and some of us don't even question it. And that's why I'm really bringing it up, because I'm someone as well, right? Like there are times where I don't even question like um, you know, I always question where my time is going. So like let's get that out there. But in terms of my attention, my talent, my energy, specifically my energy, uh there's not necessarily like a running gauge on that. And when something captures my attention, I'm not always paying attention to like what it is and what the intention may have been when when said thing was created. What was it created to attract my attention? Right? Like I'm not necessarily thinking about those things. And I don't necessarily need to know that, but what I think is interesting and we should individually be, you know, concerned with or intrigued by is like when your attention is captured, what is it doing? What is it doing for you? What is the subject that is capturing your attention? Because it tells you a lot about yourself, about where you are in your life. It tells you a lot about perhaps even where you're going. And so, I mean, getting back to my point of we don't actually know what's going to work. We can make predictions based off of like what is what is presented to us, what we've gone in search of. We don't know what's going to work for ourselves until we actually implement it. So in research is just presented how whatever intention someone had to produce this data, the patterns that they observed and are now presenting, you may not necessarily know that. You may not necessarily know what they were looking for, what they were optimizing for. You're just kind of taking it on as fact. And so now you're integrating that into your own thinking and your own experience. But in actuality, that might not even be really the truth. It could be skewed, it could be, you know. So I'm not trying to, test anybody's confidence with their research, but I just think that one thing that we don't really think about um collectively is what we're doing and implementing for ourselves, and how what effect that the endless search for research or for validity is costing us in terms of our own experimentation. So anyway, I'm sure I didn't break that down the way that was the most clear, but something that I will be exploring and I'm very curious about. I'm not going to say that like everything is just a guess, but a lot of what we're doing when we're looking, especially externally, is we're trying to make a good prediction. And let's just name that. A prediction is only a prediction, right? You only get the result after you do the thing. Right. And so you can test someone's theory, you can test someone's, what they've experienced in your own life, but you really don't have a guarantee. And you really can't be confident in it until you do it. And and to that end, like there's another layer to this, because why do we need our attempts to be successful, especially the first a few times. The first time, especially, is kind of ridiculous for you to think, like, I'm going to research all of these things that other people did and I'm going to implement them and they're going to work the first time under my conditions in my life. That's just going to be completely successful. Like the audacity of us to think that that is that that's normal. Now, look, it can work. And I think a lot of us have built our lives and our careers and our jobs around, solid information, right? And the predictability of like, okay, well, I'm going to give it a pretty good, you know, probability that this will work. If it worked for this, it can work for me. If it worked for this entity or person, then I can make it work for me. And I mean, a lot of times, the stakes are so low, it doesn't matter. But like my thing is like, what business do we even have thinking that? Like, why isn't it that we're making an effort and we can learn as we go? Like you can make an attempt, see what happened, what did you learn, and what can you apply to the next rep. And I mean, so for me, I'm running a number of experiments in my own life, having to do with my fitness and creating content and other various projects. Um, so some of this stuff is, I mean, I would say all of it is pretty low stakes. Like if I don't succeed the first time, it's like not a big deal. But I just question some of the norms that I feel we live by societally, like um just producing results is this thing that I feel is so harped on as if we should be getting it right the first time, people, right? And if we're not, we're doing something wrong. I just don't agree with that. But I think it's something that is deeply rooted within us. It's like this is the way you have to do it. You have to go, do your research because that's, the most important thing, and then execute it in perfect order and, come out with a win. And that's just not practically the way that it actually works for, other people. I think that concept is damaging to those of us who believe it because if you really look at and look, and I'm just gonna go back into that example, but if you really look at the people who are like champions, right, or the people who are really successful, you would find that they didn't do that. They didn't think like that. That's not what their history shows. Their history actually shows that they tried a bunch of stuff and considerably could be called failures, right? Like considerably, they've tried enough things that they failed more often than they succeeded. But we see the success and only attribute the success to their expertise. So we're not looking at the number of times, the number of reps they put in, or the number of times that they did not succeed. We're only looking at like, oh, you did this well. So you should be able to tell me how to do it well or how you did it well. And then I should be able to apply that framework and then we're good to go. I don't have to do any of the failing that you did. And that is completely not practical. So, but I think some of these things, I mean, some of these things are they're just observations that I'm making, based on the language we use, based on like our habits and how we speak about things. Uh, you know, we're just in a place where I think a lot of people do not understand how much work things actually take and how much time and effort goes into success. So, um, I'm saying all this because I look forward to failing. I look forward to trying something that didn't work and noticing it, right? Because that's one of the things I'm going to get to in a little bit is like, we're not going to put a number on like you need to fail it this many times, but you should consider, right, that it's going to take a number of times to get it right before it just goes right. And look, if it goes right the first time, win, bonus. But we shouldn't expect that because that's one of the things that leads into us not wanting to try. And then it also leads into this false, you know, experience of like being blackballed, or like people say, oh, I was shadow banned. Now, some people I'm sure are actually shadow banned, but other people, maybe you just didn't put in the reps that you need to put in, or maybe the thing that worked for that person doesn't work for you and you have to try something else. And what I am feeling, or what I'm observing, is that instead of trying something totally new that you've not seen before, a lot of people are opting to do the thing that they see working. It's like we're more apt to copy something than to try what feels natural to us. And I'm questioning some things about that, right? About that practice. I see it all over. I mean, I can use a few examples, but you obviously don't want to try to reinvent the wheel every time, but we can't all be doing the same thing. We're not the same person. We should have some, like we should have some like differentiating qualities that speak to our experiences. I feel like that is missing from our environments, that we don't individually um want to ruffle feathers or test the waters. Even we just want to comfortably fit in within like what we consider successful. Like we want to do the things, have them work the first time, not experience any discomfort or sense of, oh, that didn't work out, I have to try again. It's like we want to be so efficient that we're just willing to not try new things. And that's sort of like what I'm getting at. I'm not making a general statement as if everyone's like this, but I'm seeing more and more of it by my observation, and I just think it's worth a conversation. um it's like a rep is not only just an attempt at success, it's data. It's data forming, and it's your own data based on your experience, based on you implementing something, the way your brain works, the way your circumstances fold around whatever you are trying. So instead of thinking like, I'm going to do this right the first time, why can't we think of it like, okay, I'm going to make an attempt and then see what happens, and then use that information to inform my next attempt. And if you look at it like an experiment that way, it can become fun, and then it's not necessarily like, you know having a horrible time, it's just like missing the success. It's like learning. And I don't know, there's something to that, so I'm not gonna harp on that part much longer. But I think it's a conversation worth thinking about, even to yourself, because even just doing it, and I say reps, I say that a lot. It's not about necessarily like workout reps, or I'm saying it just in general for life, like the number of times you try something. Um and even the trying of something is not enough just to do that. It's like you have to observe. Doing something repeatedly doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to get better at it, or that you're going to be, I think the probability is there if you keep doing it and your intention is to be better. But you really have to pay attention to what's working for you. Like, not only how it feels in the moment, but the results and the feedback and the evaluation that comes after. Like, did that work for you? What are you aiming at? Do you see yourself understanding more? It's like it's a study. It's a study of yourself doing a thing, but the only way you could get that information from the study is to actually do the thing, right? So it's like, um you got to put in the reps but study the reps, right? And so, you know, and just, I was saying about like failure, sometimes I do think like failure is learning, and that's not automatically learning either. It's an opportunity to learn. When you fail, it's an opportunity to say, okay, what could have gone better? But if but there's that possibility too, that people could fail over and over and just not go back and look, and just think, okay, I can't do this, or this rigged against me. But it's like, are you looking at the data, are you looking for the opportunity to learn from this? Are you looking for what you can glean to apply next time? And this is kind of like, I wouldn't even say it's mindset stuff. It's like these are the things that you might, I don't even say go into it with the idea of it, but like after you do a thing and after you sort of are collectively looking at what has occurred for you, are you looking for the opportunity to learn from it? Right? It's the information, like the story of what has happened is the data. The reflection of what has happened turns into the learning if you're allowing for that. Because I think not everybody is actually looking for that, and some people are trying to just, I don't know. I don't want to. There's so many ways that sentence could have ended, but some people are they're optimizing for something else. Um, but the thing that I'm really getting at is the demand that we put on ourselves for that first one or two times to be, to prove that we're successful, to prove that we can do this. We're putting a lot of weight on that, right? um but you got to kind of like look and see what happens after that. Was it good? What do you consider good? Like, did it do what it was intended to do? Why or why not? What are some things that you can adjust moving forward? And I mean, listen, there's legitimate science behind all the stuff about like learning through attempts, and all that science leans towards um studying the outputs, right? But you have to implement first and then go and look at that. So, but okay, so then this is what I'm really getting at too. So I'm thinking about people that do what I've done in the past and what I still do sometimes. It's just like sometimes you can research so much that it becomes a form of avoidance. It's like a form of procrastination. I can't really call it procrastination. Let's get that out of there. I feel like absorbing new information is always fun. Even just in that moment, even if you don't remember it afterwards, it's like, okay, that is a good practice, right? Just opening your mind, absorbing information, making personal observations. That's great. I think it's a good practice to have. But if we are putting uh some sort of like quota or something on research that, okay, we need to do this amount of research, or you may not even have a point of reason. And that's really where it gets tricky, when you don't even know how much research you actually need before you start. That's a problem, right? Because you could spend years researching something and then never do anything with it. I think you have to start, as Seth Godin would say, you have to start shipping some of the work to even see what's going to happen. um and I mean, I think about it like people do research for years in order to write books or to, you know, produce things like movies or works of art. I think that's, necessary. You have to do research. I'm not hating on research. What I'm saying um is it are you using the researching as a tool, or are you using it as reassurance? Are you using it as like a crutch? Like, are you saying, like, I need a guarantee or a promise that this is going to work before I try it? Because that's not going to happen. Like, you can think about something over and over, and you can think it through and all that stuff before you try. It just You just don't know what the outcome will be until you try it, though. Like, what is the research giving you, or what are you looking for in the research? At some point you have to like turn the focus on yourself and say, how much more do I actually need to know before I'm willing to ship some of the work? Yeah. And like for me, that's one of those reflective questions that help me to make a move, to move forward. And I can say this from experience, the most informative, um like, say information, I get the most information by doing the thing. because like, even I have an example. There was a time years ago, probably like 2018. Um, yeah, it had to be 2018. And I know because that was the year that I got married. So, my husband had a show at the time, a YouTube show that he was doing, and I was doing all the editing. And I realized that like we both realized that like, okay, you're gonna have to do your own editing because I have other projects that I need to work on. So as I'm trying to teach him how to edit, he's like, oh, I need to take a class on this. And I'm like, yo, um it's like I can't, like I think a class could be helpful, but you kind of have to know the tools and the shortcuts and stuff, and that kind of comes from doing it. You kind of have to go in here like a bull in a china shop, learn like what you're trying to do, maybe a few of the most basic functions like, pausing, splitting a clip, importing footage, like, and then a course can be helpful because then you're more apt to like retain the information based on the knowledge base that you've already accumulated from trying to do it. So in some ways, it's like do it before you're ready and then go back and study what other people say because then you can apply it more easily. You'll retain more information instead of like, oh man. And this might be what it is because most of us, especially in this country or really in a lot of countries, we went to school, and that schooling teaches you a certain method of implementation that may not apply to everything. But it's like you got to be able to try before you have all the information. And then the way that your brain attaches to a subject area or some information is like your brain is going to attach wherever it attaches, and then it's going to expand based on whatever you find interesting. You're not going to be able to like memorize everything, especially in that example I'm using for editing. You're not going to be able to listen. I can't speak for everybody, but I ended up being right in this scenario. It would be so difficult to try to go and memorize all the terms and where to click and what to do as a course without being hands on, because you're now just trying to memorize vocabulary words and sequences as opposed to actually using the tool. So like you can learn how to use the tool, but or you could learn and take the course first, or you could jump in and start using it, and then when you take the course, things make more sense. So other people's data can tell you generally like what's worth trying, but ultimately your own experiments are going to be what behaves. Like that's going to be your own experiments that teaches you how to behave. That's where most of the meat and potatoes comes from. It's you doing your thing, using your tools and your hands and your brain and applying that to the material, right? And then under the conditions that you are actually experiencing. That's what's going to give you the blueprint. I think that's what's the most useful. Um and you can glean that information, like you could do the research initially to figure out what direction you want to go in. But even when somebody say that thing worked for them, you kind of have to be in the medium working in that environment to see what would work for you. And when you get in there, what's instinctive to you? Because that's how you're going to see stuff, right? That's how your viewpoint is going to be formed anyway. Is what's working for you? What are you drawn to? What do you believe that may even be corrected later, but like you got to start from where you are in order to even get to a place of growth. So, um yeah, I guess those are the ideas I wanted to share. Giving yourself a runway instead of a verdict. I was thinking that to me means, you don't have to know what the decision is before you get out there and start operating. You don't have to know what the outcome is going to be before you get out there and start experimenting. And I like to do like experiments, 30 days, 100 days. A lot of times we don't give ourselves enough time either to see if something is working. So I think you know, our our patience levels have significantly dropped in recent decades, but giving yourself 30 days to see what's happening, to see how you're adapting to something, to really decipher between what your experiences and your viewpoints are, I think is beneficial. 100 days, even better. That's a deeper experiment. It's enough time to really gather some meaningful data for yourself and say, oh, okay, this is what my experiment or my experience has been, right? And then you can base it off of not an emotion, not a particular week, a circumstance, a temporary thing. These are like what works for you, right? And you will have observed that after 100 days. And just different experiments require different elements, but this connects to what I was saying in my short earlier, which is do it before you're ready. I mean, like, that's just, it's going to be uncomfortable. We have to just face that. There isn't necessarily, we have to define what ready means to us. Um, but doing something before you're ready doesn't mean that was your one and only attempt. It means, okay, I'm just going to start and then I'll gather the information to say, okay, well, next time I'll make sure that I have these things prepared before I go into that. So, um and it's okay if you don't know at first. Like, this is what I feel the need to say. It's okay if it doesn't work at first. Like, who is judging you to that extent to where, oh, it has to be like near perfect the first time? Most environments are going to give you the ability to work it out, right? And figure it out as you go along. Um, but everybody has a different thinking on that. I just want to be the one of the voices saying, like, it's okay if it doesn't work. In fact, that's good because now you have information, you have data to apply. And so anyway, right now I'm currently running a number of experiments, as I've said, most of which are super imperfect. But I'm learning each and every time that I try. And I had to remind myself today, this may not have anything to do um with this live is about, but what I realized today is like, oh no, this is your new life now. So like in previous, I may have shared this in previous weeks, months. I've been trying to be more consistent with YouTube, and oh man, I think it was June that I did a great job, and I was doing my 10-day check-ins, and I still been doing my 10-day check-ins, but I haven't been sharing them and uploading them live like I was, just because there's just a bunch of stuff that's happening in my life. But I am really consistent with checking in with myself. It's just the idea of like sharing it that I haven't been able to um not recently. I haven't been able to get a cadence of sharing it on YouTube that works for me, along with all the other things that are happening, but I'm working on it. So I think I'm probably going to come back with a recap of my last 3 strides probably this weekend, cuz it's the 28th now. Monday's the 31st. So I'm going to go ahead probably on Sunday and just do a live, and I'll go in and check in. um it would be a 10-day check-in, but I haven't shared any of my check-ins in the last maybe like 4 or 5 check-ins. So I'll just do like a check-in that kind of gets us caught up. I'll talk about the 10 days period that we're in now, the 10-day stride period that we're in now, and then I'll kind of like review what has happened since the last check-in, I suppose. But I'll do that on Sunday. There's my word. I'm going to do it. But here's the thing. I'm I'm really this is what I wanted to share. In the time that I was in June, when I was really on it and I was creating content and I felt really good about sort of like what I was creating and what I was putting out there, um, I in the time that has passed even since then, making the realization that if I'm going to continue to do this on a like somewhat consistent basis, then it has to fit for me. Like I can take into account what works for other people, but like I have to do it and then figure out what works for me and what doesn't in order for it to be sustainable. So I can take advice and I can apply that advice, but again, it's just it's just a test. It's just a rep. It's just an information point. And I think um sometimes we don't think about it like that. Like, oh, it's just information. We sort of think about it like it didn't work. It has to work. It didn't work. Oh my god, you know. So I just want to give us some space to be able to experiment and do things before we're ready, study what happens and just know that that's okay. It's okay that it doesn't work out the first time. I had a realization today that like cuz I thought about whether I wanted to go on my walk today, which I've been doing almost every day. I'm so proud of myself. But I was like, oh, do I want to go on my walk today? Or do I need to do this thing for my son and do this and that? And then I had to tell myself, oh, no, this is who you are now. Yeah. Yeah. You're going on that walk. Like, because no matter what happens throughout the day, like, you have to show up for yourself in the way that you want to show up for everybody else. So I was challenging myself and I was reminding myself that like, oh yeah, you have to go on a walk because this is who you are. You go on a walk in the morning, you know, and you take your son sometimes. Like I took him this morning, and that was one of the things that I was trying to like figure out like how I could do because I it was like right around us breakfast time. And I'm like, okay, how is this gonna work out? So that's why I was thinking to myself, do I need to go on my walk today or can I skip that and then get directly to what he needs? And I was like, everybody's fine. He ate, he was fine, he wasn't starving. But it was like I had to remind myself, like, well, you have to go on the walk because that's who you are now. And it's similar to how I'm taking on creating content. It's like, well, this is who you say you are. You say you want to be a content creator, you say you're a content creator, create some content. Like so you don't get to opt out. You don't get to call out. You this is who you are. Right? This is what I'm saying to myself. And I'm not saying it in such a way where it's unhealthy and I'm saying like you got to do it or you're not great. It's just like, look, you're showing up, you're putting in the reps, you're going to learn from it. It's all good. It's all a part of a strategy. It's all a part of learning. And that's how I show up in my life. Like it's all information. Everything can be informative. And I'm just starting to pay more attention though to what I'm paying attention to, what attracts my attention, what I'm pouring my attention into because it's so valuable to these billion-dollar companies. Our attention collectively, it's so valuable to them. Sometimes they don't even like sure they're selling things to us. They want us to spend our money, but it's not necessarily what's valuable to them is us spending our money. They want to prove that they have our attention and that is so valuable to them to go and make money with other companies because our attention is that valuable. I want you to think about that. There are competing billion-dollar companies. They're all competing for what? Our attention, our data. And so as you go into your day, think about how valuable your attention is. And do you know where it's going? Do you know what it's doing for you? Do you know what, after spending your attention on something for several minutes, several hours, do you know what that does to you and for you? And do you have an intention that you're seeking with your attention? Are you trying to learn or grow or become something? Or are you just out here spending it? Are you spending your attention where you're not even interested, right? In an area where you're not even interested in investing it? Because your attention is very valuable, especially groups of people. Our attention is being competed for. So take that and think about it and go into your day and recognize that your attention is valuable. And so, what does that mean to you? If it's valuable to a $1 billion corporation, how valuable must it be? And what could you be using it for? Do you have what you want? So, anyway, guys, I love hanging out with you. I hope that this discussion was, you know, thought provoking. I'm just out here sharing my thoughts, sharing some of the questions and things that I ask of myself. And I'm just learning more and more. So I appreciate all of the people who comment. Um, certainly feel free to comment below. Let me know your thoughts on some of these topics and questions that we're exploring. And I can't wait to talk to y'all next time. Toodaloo. Have a good day.